Interesting take here from Filip Hrgovic. He said that Anthony Joshua was a beast, but he started to box too much. And he actually said this in a recent interview in relation to himself. So he said, quote, "I'm careful not to learn too much and become something that I'm not, take away my advantages." I think that happened to Anthony Joshua. He was a beast. He was a knockout artist, and then he started to learn too much about boxing, and he started to box too much, overthinking, unquote. It's an interesting take, but I'm not sure I completely agree because of the reasons. Well, as far as Hrgovic not getting away from what makes him what he is, I agree with that because Hrgovic has something or a couple of things that Anthony Joshua maybe doesn't have. One is a solid chin, and secondly, Filip Hrgovic has maybe got better stamina than Anthony Joshua, although that's perhaps a little debatable after his last performance against Jili Zhang. But certainly in the chin department, Filip Hrgovic, amateur and pro, and in the WSB, showed himself to be solid. Whereas with AJ, he's been down numerous times as a pro, hurt numerous times. And there's also all these stories over the years of him being down, knocked out, hurt in sparring. So with AJ's decision to box more and change his style and get away from being that wrecking machine that he was in the early part of his career, it's being dictated by his acceptance of his vulnerabilities. If you're a guy that doesn't have the greatest chin and you don't have the greatest stamina, how far can you really get being hyper aggressive? Do you know what I mean? Maybe it was actually the best thing for Anthony Joshua to learn other skills. Now, of course, he's going to need that aggressive style against certain people. And of course, he needed it against Alexander Usyk and wasn't able to implement it to the extent necessary. But in many other fights, it's not going to be a good idea to fight in that aggressive way. Case in point, Andy Ruiz. And it's not like he really fought overly aggressive against Andy Ruiz in the first fight, but he had that very aggressive moment after he dropped Ruiz where he went in to try and finish him and he got clipped. Now, some people could say, yeah, but you just learn to be a smarter, aggressive fighter. You know, you learn to implement that aggression in a more intelligent way, in a more measured way, rather than just reckless abandon, which is what we saw when he was going for the finish against Ruiz. And that would be better for him than doing all this boxing stuff. Again, I don't necessarily agree. I mean, you look at Vladimir Klitschko. Early on in his career, he was very aggressive. Let me not say very aggressive. I'll remix that. He was quite aggressive. Certainly a lot more aggressive than the Vladimir Klitschko he went on to become during that unbeaten streak over 10 years. Early on in his career, he was letting his hands go, throwing combinations, all that kind of stuff. And look where it got him. He ended up getting stopped by Ross Purity, knocked out by Corey Sanders. You see, he had to learn the hard way that letting your hands go and being aggressive and being more entertaining can backfire. You know, even if you do have the power and you do have the skill and the balance and all that kind of stuff, if you don't have the chin and you don't have the stamina, the endurance, and all the other stuff that you need to be effective on the front foot, then it's best to leave it alone, perhaps. And Vladimir Klitschko eventually developed a style that worked for him, as fan unfriendly as it was, right? It worked for him, and he was able to go on that long, unbeaten run. With AJ, I don't think he necessarily needs to turn into a Klitschko. As I say, there will be times, certainly as we saw in the Usyk fights, where he needs to be more aggressive. He needs to channel that old AJ. At the same time, think there's going to be other occasions where the worst thing in the world for AJ to do is to go forward and start having a scrap with somebody. You know, it's not even just the headshots, right, that AJ struggles with, even the body shots. AJ is a guy who's vulnerable to the body as well. We saw that in the first Andy Ruiz fight. He just started to get his legs back after that third round. I think it might have been round 6. He just started to get his legs back, and then Ruiz started hitting him in the body. And AJ's legs just departed the fight. You know, all of a sudden, he was lurching around the ring, and he was really slow on his feet, not because of headshots in that 6th round, but because of body shots. So AJ is vulnerable to the body too. And it's a funny thing, you know, you see a guy like AJ with all the abs and all that kind of stuff, and many people will think, well, surely he can take a shot, right? Because look how strong his abdominal area is. But apparently that's not the case. because I've seen many fighters who have, strong midsections or whatever, and they can't really take a good body shot. Some people believe that having a bit of fat around the body actually helps. So you might have strong muscles underneath the fat, but having a layer of fat on top helps to cushion the blows. And this may explain why we see fewer body shot stoppages at heavyweight than we do at the lighter weights. Now, there could be other reasons for it as well, such as heavyweights not being as accurate, because to stop somebody or drop somebody with a body shot, normally you catch them on the floating rib, etc., right in the sweet spot, and they go down. And it really is a sweet spot. You have to be precise with it to catch them in the exact right place in most instances. Maybe heavyweights are just not accurate enough to do that. Maybe heavyweights don't throw as many body shots a lot of the time because the stakes are so high at heavyweight. Everybody has got the potential to knock you out nearly. So going to the body is maybe seen as a more risky thing. Maybe they feel like they can't get in and out and get the body shot off and get their hand back up to block any counters. Maybe the risk reward they don't think is worth it, so they don't throw as many. I don't know. But either way, I do think that there might be some truth to this idea that having a bit of fat around the body, because, logically you would think it may make sense, right? If you've got muscle underneath and you've got fat on top, it adds some protection, some cushion. So, yeah, with a guy like AJ who really doesn't have much fat around the body, maybe there's just less protection there against body shots and they affect him more. You guys let me know what you think about that in the comment section below. So, yeah, that's my take on Filip Hrgovic's comments about Anthony Joshua, saying AJ was a beast, but he started to box too much. As far as the overthinking, I agree with that. I agree with the overthinking, but that goes for back foot boxing, long range boxing as well. Just because you're on the back foot and you're long range boxing, you don't have to be overthinking. I mean, you look at someone like Tyson Fury. When Tyson Fury's boxing at long range, he's thinking enough, but he's not overthinking to the point where he's not throwing any shots. He has a clear idea of what he wants to do, and he goes out and does it. Same with Muhammad Ali. Ali was a very instinctive fighter. He had that athletic intelligence where he just innately knew, and I'm talking about a prime Ali, what his opponent was going to do by reading his body language and, understanding the lay of the land, where he was in the ring in relation to his opponent. A lot of this stuff is innate, and it's difficult to teach a guy. Obviously, over time with experience, you can start to pick certain things up, and AJ should be there at this point. But when you're boxing long range, you shouldn't be overthinking the situation to the point where you're scared to throw. Now, if you're in a fight where you're not throwing a lot, your opponent's not throwing a lot, but you're still winning the rounds at long range by not really throwing much, then that's absolutely fine. But if you're in a situation where, like AJ was in the first Usyk fight, you're not throwing much and your opponent's off to a lead and he's winning, that's where it's a serious problem. Do you know what I mean? That's where your overthinking is coming back to haunt you. So I'll definitely take that point on board from Hrgovic as far as AJ overthinking. 100% I agree with that. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below.